You know, as a parent, you want your children to be able to successfully cope with the struggles of daily life. But the question puzzling mothers and fathers alike is exactly how to help them do that. Well, author of The Power of Your Child's Imagination, How to Transform Stress and Anxiety into Joy and Success, Dr. Charlotte Reznick has some really indispensable tips on how to empower your child and build that necessary self-esteem within them. Thank you very much for coming today.
I'm very happy to be here.
Just glancing through your book, and it looks really, really insightful for parents who are struggling with kids who are under a great deal of stress, and there are a lot of stress in kids' lives in this day and age. What are some of the biggest stresses that you see?
School, trying to do well, not feeling pressured, friends, trying to have friends, feeling bad when you don't have friends, when parents get divorced, that's a big stress.
Huge, huge stress.
Yeah. So I really believe, and I've seen over the years, that just with a little bit of help, you could guide your child to find the answers inside themselves, just with their imagination.
Let's start with school and the stresses associated with school. I remember in second to third grade, I was the classic kid who complained of the stomach aches. So, got to go to the principal's, to the nurse's office. I've got really bad stomach ache. I just wanted to see my mother. You know, I wanted to go home, and I'd kind of conjure up any excuse to do that. So what was wrong with me?
Maybe a little bit of separation anxiety, but that's okay. I had a little girl actually who had terrible stomach aches. She drew it like lightning, and she'd be afraid to be on her own, and she was terrified of spelling tests. Even though she was really smart and always did well, she would cry and cry and cry. And what she did was, we got her a couple of things. I taught her how to breathe. I call it the balloon breath because it's an easy visual, just breathing below your belly button about 2 to 3 inches, slowly. She imagined a special place where she could feel safe. She brought her friends in there, her best friend, to help her study. She had a desk with 2 pencils and 2 scissors and everything, swings that she could play on. And you know what? She also imagined a wizard, and her wizard, like a spelling wizard, to help her remember and do flashcards with her, sprinkle some dust to help her brain really, you know, be ready for it.
Right.
And you know what? That really helped her over time.
I read about the balloon breath technique here, which you describe. It sounds very similar to what an adult therapist would describe for an adult patient in terms of hypnosis therapy.
Right.
Breathing techniques to calm yourself down, learning how to calm yourself down. I wouldn't think it would work with children.
You know, it's amazing. As young as 4, I've been doing this. Maybe for a 4-year-old, I'll call it the rainbow breath. So imagine the beautiful rainbow, breathe it into your belly, breathe it through your whole body, calms you right down.
You use an interesting technique of describing, people understand what that breathing technique is exactly, and you say, look at a sleeping dog, or a sleeping baby, a sleeping child, and watch how their stomach moves.
Watch how they're breathing, and when you're using it with young kids, you could put a little stuffed animal on their belly, and they could lie down, and they could see it go up and down. And for older kids or teenagers, I just call it deep breathing. And when you say it's kind of a hypnosis technique, hypnosis, deep breathing, meditation, they're all related. They all focus on that breathing because it really centers you.
Well, let's talk about, you mentioned the stress of divorce, and I can't imagine a bigger stress in a child's life. It is, for the entire family, a death of a family in some ways.
So it's grief.
It's grief.
Yes.
They're grieving, and children react in different ways to this.
They react in different ways, and divorce is a fact of life, but I haven't had any child that hasn't told me they want their parents to separate, even if they're fighting. They all want them to come together. But you know what? You could use their imagination. You could help them. For example, when they're at mom's house, they could imagine they could connect sending love to their dad. You know, just have a connection with him. Just feel like some kind of connection so they don't feel so cut off, and vice versa. And they could use animal friends. I have them imagine animal friends who are like very loving animals, you know, kind creatures that take care of them. And they could just keep them company and not feel so lonely or not feel so sad. Or one girl whose parents were getting divorced, she had terrible stomach aches like you did, but different, you know, different reason. And so she kind of imagined her little animal friends surrounding her and taking good care and cuddling with her.
You talk about putting pen to paper or crayon to paper.
Yes, because expressing your feelings and writing them out is very cathartic. And I'll have them, for the older kids, I'll have them do both hands. They might ask a question, how can my sadness go away, and answer with their non-dominant hand. One boy asked, why is there so much stress in my life? And his other hand answered, there's not so much stress, you put it on yourself.
Interesting.
It was
Wow.
very helpful for him to see that.
Do you teach parents in this book how to recognize stress in their children?
Yes, absolutely.
That's really important because I think a lot of parents are oblivious.
They're oblivious and they don't realize that kids are under more stress than ever before. Recently there was an American Psychological Association survey found, first time they asked kids and tweens and teens if they felt more stress this year than they did last. And there was a large percentage that did, and their parents weren't aware of it. So it's important for parents to know. So look, watch your child. Any changes in behavior, if they're irritable, if they're sleeping more or sleeping less, if they're eating more or eating less, if they're bullying their younger brother a little bit more than they usually do. You have to...
Rashes, physical symptoms?
Oh, yes. Well, stomach aches, headaches. Sometimes kids do get rashes. Sometimes they get little ticks that come and go because of their anxiety, because of their stress. So if you kind of go with these 9 tools, you could really help your kids transform that to feel good about themselves.
Is there ever a situation where after you've employed all the techniques in this and worked hard at it and it doesn't work, there comes a point where you should see a professional therapist with your child?
Absolutely.
And what are some of the tip-off points there?
Well, if the behavior continues, even with trying some of these tools and the power of your child's imagination, if it continues for a couple of months or 6 months, or if you're concerned, I think parents should trust their intuition because they're really the best. They could really tell what's going on with their kids and trust it when they're centered. So I have tools for parents too.
Great, great. You know, this sounds like a tremendously valuable book. Again, it's The Power of Your Child's Imagination. The author, Charlotte Reznick. Thanks so much for coming in and enlightening us about this.
Thanks for having me.